Very peaceful. It's been a while since I did any kind of gameplay video on YouTube. Well, I mean like proper gameplay. Typically the types of things I've done in terms of like actual gameplay footage have been things like hunting for inspiration on the main channel, but actually spending an extended amount of time in video games is not something I would typically do over there because it's a very Blender-centric channel and, it doesn't really make much sense. But over here on Reference Board, I figure we can spend a bit more time just inside of the spaces, analyzing things, enjoying the vibes of like the worlds, and then generally just admiring the artistic effort that goes into things. Now, the game that we're playing at the moment is Oblivion Remastered. You may or may not have heard of it. It's a remake, in quotes, of a popular game from around, 2006, 2007? I spent a long time playing this one as a kid. It was one of my favorite games, that's for sure. And one of the key things to know about this remake is that they apparently remade every single artistic asset in the game. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but it definitely looks like it as you move around the world. Although they kept the original charm in terms of like the basic artistry with things like this world map, for example, which, as you could tell, has typically not had much of its quality improved. So they maintain a lot of the original charm in that way. One of the main things we gain as a part of this remaster is an Unreal Engine wrapper. I suppose that's something or some way I could describe it. The visuals of the game are apparently managed by Unreal Engine, which is being utilized by one of the developers of the remake called Virtuous Games, and that's what provides all of the lovely visuals and the lighting and just makes it all generally quite impressive. Whereas the original logic for the game is still running on Bethesda's original engine, which is not the best thing in the world. Typically very buggy, lots of broken quest lines, but still quite ambitious for what it was. It is very interesting though, having a look at such a nostalgic game through the lens of like far greater improved visuals and things like screen space reflections and what I might describe as global illumination, although it may not be that simple. Obviously Unreal Engine is known for its Nanite and Lumen systems, Nanite for virtualized geometry and Lumen for like a real-time global illumination. There are some cases when playing this where it looks like there is an impressive level of lighting bouncing around, but other times it's not as clear. One thing is for sure, it looks a hell of a lot better than it did in 2006 or 7 again. I should double check that. I'm going to pass time until later in the morning, so the sun will be up. And here we go. I've moved away from the Oblivion Gate, as it's called, which is effectively a gateway to hell. If the next installment in the Elder Scrolls series, when that eventually comes out, if it comes out within my lifetime, if this is anything to go by, then it should look amazing, but again, we're not too sure because this is a unique project in the way of it using kind of two engines in parallel, which is not typical for Bethesda games. But even still, we've got this, and then we can admire things like the density of nature and the quality of lighting. What I would like to do, rather than just running around in the rather lovely and peaceful open world, is find some kind of dungeon/keep to enter so we can have a look at more interesting lighting under the ground. I see a place on the compass ahead called Robber's Glen Cave, so that might be worth taking a look at. Before we do that though, a little admiration for texture detail. My god, if my earlier self saw this a decade ago when I was playing the original version, they probably would have had their mind blown. I'm seeing what I think are different levels of detail in the way of like, maybe that's a higher texture density compared to this area here. Maybe it's just stretched UVs, or maybe it's a type of shader that's just running with multiple layers to make things more interesting and more believable. Because that's the thing about like terrains from a distance. Making things seamless is one thing, but removing the variability often requires variation between scales at different ranges, which is something that's quite easy to overlook. Alright, immediately here we are, and we see volumetrics. A torch is great, but I have found that when a light source is coming directly from you, like close to the camera, it kind of flattens things out a bit, makes them a bit less interesting, and by them I mean the environment. They've even added subtle animations for when you pick things, which are quite nice. I see some kind of imp over there. So let's enjoy the volumetrics as it is. Oh, I missed, but I saw a spark. There we go. This looks nice here. Some kind of ray of light shining on the floor up ahead makes the water glisten a bit. Again, shader quality wise, just a massive step up. It looks wonderful, and I guess as we step under the light, there we go. Some glistening on the armor. I'm really impressed with the interior spaces in this. And we can even see that in the volumetric, it's kind of a bit like a god ray with a little bit of like fog variability in there. Even in the dark, we can see that kind of noise variety in the fog that seems to be slowly settling and moving across the screen. Quite hard to see, especially if you've got a dark screen, but it is there. Again, also interesting to see the characters and enemies completely redesigned from scratch. There are ragdoll physics in this. I can't turn this guy over at the moment. Come on. There we go. Let's take a look at you. Definitely high enough quality to seem like it was sculpted from like a higher resolution than retopoed down, but I don't know. It's far higher quality than it needs to be in terms of a character model for a relatively small NPC. The stalagmites look amazing here, with a bit of that wet mud look as well on the ground, shimmering. Very good. Oh, quite a clean shot in the mouth. You know, when I look at rocky environments like this, obviously the first instinct is that the easiest way to do it is with photogrammetry, but this is clearly not super realistic. I don't know how they've made it. I suppose you can chop things up with any manner of like sculpting brushes and then just apply like some kind of metallic material with a higher roughness to it, and that basically looks like rock. But yeah, I don't know. It'd be fun to try and create some environments like this at some point, because again, for like lighting demonstration scenes, rocky areas like this are fantastic. So many surfaces for light to bounce off. That's something I need to keep in mind, particularly for my lighting projects in Blender, such as Afterglow. I swear, the further you are from areas like this, the better they look. It's probably because all the details cluster together. Alright, well, we're out of that cave now, and typically what I would do is either sell a bunch of the loot I've got, or take it back and store it like the hoarder I am. But before we do that, I think there's some kind of castle or keep-like structure up ahead, so let's go take a little look. Where I live in England, we do actually have things like this. There's quite a few castles around, and some of them are built on hillsides. I actually have no idea how they do it, because sometimes you look at these centuries-old structures and you think, wow, Jesus, how did they build them on top of a hill like that? But they're always fascinating and somewhat like calm places to explore. Although this one's not calm, because we have a friend. I always feel bad about killing the wolves in this game. Okay, well this is Fort Varela, so we can return there if needed. Different types of ruins over the river, lovely little port area, and another Oblivion gate. And then the giant Imperial city in the distance. And that's a beautiful thing about open world games. You know, you see it, you can go there. Well, that's how it should be anyway. So we get to have a peaceful little walk through a graveyard. I mean, the immersion level in this is fantastic. I can see why people enjoy like role-playing, like properly in games like this. I suppose it's in the name really, role-playing game. I did wonder when I started playing this remaster after it came out whether they were actually utilizing the nanite system in Unreal Engine. Strictly because there is a lot of geometric detail on the surfaces. It's not all parallax or displacement, but I'm not too sure. The performance in these open world areas is not great because it's generally not that well optimized for the open world spaces, but I'm sure they will work on that as time goes on, since this remaster has only really just come out. Well, I guess that's another fort we can explore as well. But the place I'm going to dump all my stuff can actually be seen already. Right at the top of that mountain there. Frostcrag Spire. And wow, what a location this is. Massive bridge. I think I remember this back in the day. And the Imperial City there on the side. Let's see. Frostcrag Spire. Well, it's nighttime at the moment. My demon horse is fine chilling where they are. Let's climb this little mountain. Typically, there should be a good view from up here. However, you know, it's a bit dark. So here's the tower. Let's head on inside. This was originally a downloadable piece of content for the original game. Obviously all of that's included now. A good place for like mage role-playing and stuff like that. You have teleporters to living quarters, a kind of underground vault of sorts. So let's head up to the living quarters. And up here, there's this lovely little alchemy section where you've got your own garden, and it demonstrates a lot of different types of plants from the game. But again, this is also quite a good place to visualize the artistry of the flora that was created for the game, and it's separated into different like ecological sections, if you want to think about it that way, where this section over here is all about Oblivion, so again the equivalent of like a hell-like scape, because they have their own flora with different behaviors, and every ingredient contributes something to the alchemical potion crafting in the game. So I could grab a whole bunch of these things while I'm here. Always nice to have like a private garden of your own. And then this is the bedroom area. I tend to dump a bunch of my equipment inside of this chest. So anything I don't need and that I can sell later, I can just dump in here. And then for potion crafting, if you're interested in this side of things, if you're doing like any lore or like magic type design for any like fictional universe you might be working on, it's quite good. You choose one ingredient and then you can have up to 4. And this is also dependent on the alchemical equipment you have in your inventory. As your alchemy level increases, you will learn to understand the different effects that the ingredients provide, and you can combine them with other ingredients. And we'll see a blue highlight over frost damage because this is implying that this second ingredient is compatible with the first one. And then from there, you can create either a potion or a poison. Poisons can be applied to different weapons. So it's quite an interesting and fun system. It's a good way to make money in the game, but it's also just a nice celebration of creativity on the part of like the flora design and just generally the environmental science, if you like, of a fictional world. So I say that's what we'll leave it for this little video. A fun little faceless video test of just walking around and talking about the game a little bit with a bit of a focus on the art style. If you made it this far, please put some kind of mountain or space related emoji in the comments so I can see who you are. Feel free to check out my other channels and content, and have a great day.